Hi guys, this is Jessica again talking about Enneagram, and today we're going to talk about the Somatic Enneagram. Soma means body, and what we're talking about here is how each of the types show up in their bodies. And the reason this is useful is when people are trying to discover their type, as you've probably heard, and as I've certainly said before, it's not always as easy as asking somebody a questionnaire or giving them an online Enneagram test, because a lot of times we have blind spots that we can't see and that we're not aware of. But there are other clues outside of just, written information or verbal exchanges that we can use to discover somebody's Enneagram type. And the Somatic Enneagram is one of those useful tools. So I would say, maybe I'm wrong about this, but I'm a head type. So I process the world primarily cerebrally, but I am a type 7. I have an 8 wing that's very heavy. So I'm also sensing the world instinctually on a regular basis. I'm getting a gut feel for things. And when I work with clients, and most of the time, not when I do group work, but most of the time with my coaching calls, I'm on a phone call and not even a video call. So a lot of people, we can get to their type fairly quickly, but sometimes it's a little bit challenging. And one of my other methods that I use when doing typing calls is listening to their voice, because there are different voice cues. I can tell the difference. I'm not saying that this is like 100% accurate, but there is a difference between the way a 2 speaks, let's say, and the way a 9 speaks. The energy and the way those people articulate and the words they use and whether or not they're smiling, there are different ways that different types hold themselves. And that's another clue to somebody's type. So today I'm just going to do a brief overview of some hints about how the 9 types show up in the world. And as always, I want to remind you that this is not... This takes practice, first of all, to be able to apply this and to apply it appropriately, but also any human can show up in any number of ways. But what we're talking about here is the way they show up most of the time. And I will also say, for those of you sophisticated enough to know about subtypes, depending on somebody's subtype, that can alter the come from. But I'm just going to give a general overview of the 9 types. So here we go. Type 1s are usually rigid. They speak in a clipped manner. They are usually precise. They don't use sloppy language, and they are appropriate. Their clothing is appropriate. Their buttons are buttoned, maybe ironed clothing. But a 1 is presenting well and isn't, a 1's not going to show up like this to a meeting, right? Like, that's not what a 1's going to do. 1's are not like that, okay? So there's a more appropriate style to a 1. Type 2s, remember, what's most important to type 2s is connecting with people. So when we get to type 2s, these people are very warm. They're very affectionate. They might touch you when you're talking to them. They might have jewelry or clothing that kind of stands out that maybe can work as a conversation piece. They are often used, the term that's often used in the books is hysterical. And 2s are often hysterical laughing or hysterical crying. It can go both ways. Remember, these are heart types. 2s are heart types. They are often friendly. So because of that, there's a lot of eye contact. There's a sparkle in their eye. There's a smile, usually. They often will speak in soothing tones, and they are compassionate and caring. That's how a 2 shows up. Also, they're really good listeners. I know several people who are in 2 space who will often say, "Tell me more. Tell me more." And that's, their way to connect in conversation. So that's a 2. When we get to type 3s, it is sometimes said that when you're around a 3, it feels like she's in a job interview all the time or a photo shoot. And often 3s might have a puffed out chest. They might be messing with their hair a little bit. Even when you're talking to them, I have a camera in front of me, but even when they don't have a camera in front of them, they're adjusting themselves, turning their face. They might have a look. They are poised, but in a way that they are, the image they're showing is I would say it's more like there's strong personalities too. So they can be commanding, but like in a good way. They're usually people, so they are connecting at the heart. It's not quite as cold and rigid as it is at point one, that poised stance, but it is. It's matching the appropriateness of the situation, and their voices and the way they speak has to do with the situation they're in. So threes, remember, they're our chameleon friends. So they can shift themselves and how they show up depending on who they are with and what their role is in that situation. Oh, and their clothing, I would say threes are very practical. The clothing, it can be a professional look, but can also be a practical look. Threes are, remember, they're trying to look good. These are image types. So they're not going to be, I wouldn't say they're sloppy in their appearance, but they might not be, sometimes they might be dressed a little above for the occasion, a little bit nicer maybe than what the occasion would call for. But they do look nice. I've got to say, threes show up looking nice. Okay, type 4. Fours often have a deep heaviness in their eyes. Maybe it's not always sadness, but it's like a profoundness in their eyes. Fours are very gentle most of the time, and so they might have almost like a withdrawn or almost like a hunched or they're generally also pretty introverted. So they're not mostly going to be like out center of attention type energy. Their clothing, because uniqueness is so important to a 4, they might be dressing in a really unique way or in a way that really they feel like expresses themselves. So it might stand out as not, typical clothing that other people are wearing. The way they speak is often kind of dreamy. I would say they're dreamy, and because they're always looking for the deep meaning in things, there might be some like angst or some like wrestling in their thoughts as they're processing out loud what it is they're thinking about or what it is that their soul is feeling in that moment. We get to type 5s. Now, 5s are, they're neck up people. They live from the neck up. They're very cerebral. They have piercing eyes. And it's funny because with a 5, sometimes they will look at you, but they won't always make eye contact. So they have very, very alert eyes. 5s, even though they're background people and the energy they have is very background, another wallflower, right? 5s do not want to be center of attention. So they're not going to dress in any way that's loud or that's going to attract any attention to them. I have a friend who's a 5 and she says she doesn't wear red because she doesn't want people looking at her. It was funny because then I said to her, well, do you look at people in red shirts more than you do people in black shirts? I don't know. Maybe people do. I don't necessarily notice a red shirt more than a black shirt, but maybe people are different. So they're not, this is funny. 5s often have the same clothes that they wear all the time, kind of like a uniform, because it keeps them from having to spend their valuable and limited mental energy on what they're wearing. That's so funny to me because my husband is a 5 and at home, he always wears the same outfit. It's the same shirts. He's got like 8 of the same exact shirts and he's got like 2 pairs of shorts that are also the same. And that's what he wears every day. 5s, they're not going to have facial expressions very often. They're not going to have a lot of compassion. So they will talk to you very often in a low tone. They're pretty mild in their speaking, though they are dialed in to what they're saying, okay? They're not daydreaming, but their face is going to be just very still as they're talking, and it's going to be staring, but maybe not even at you, maybe staring off to the side. But also they're very dialed in. Remember, they're there and they're talking and they're thinking, but they're not like warm like a 2 would be or leaning forward, and they're certainly not touching you. And also please don't touch them. Okay, so 6s. 6s have nervous energy. When we get to type 6, they're fidgeting, nervous laughs, nervous giggles. That's one type of 6. 6s are the most varied in the way they show up. So some 6s are way more quiet and background and are more stoic looking. But I would say the biggest giveaway with 6 is there's a nervousness, there's a fear. I mean, fear is their vice, and it does show that they are anxious, and they speak in an anxious way. When they speak, it's almost like there's lots of questions. They speak in questions. That's because they are curious. I mean, 6s are one of the most curious types there are, but they're often questioning themselves even. So when they go to say something, they don't always say it like they mean it. Sometimes they will say it like they're tentative about what they are saying. When it comes to 7s, which is my type, 7s use their hands a lot of hand talking, a lot of high energy, maybe high pitch, a lot of laughter in between with 7s, in between sentences, in between comments. I often, as a 7, I think people say funny things. To me, it seems funny. So I do laugh a lot. And then sometimes I laugh and then it seems like maybe that wasn't the place to laugh. That happens with me a lot. 7s usually have bright, cheery eyes, often smiling. I have a friend who's a 7 and this is how she smiles for pictures. She always has her mouth open, like she's having so much fun. So that's 7 energy. I also, it's said that they blink a lot. I don't know if I do a lot of blinking. Also, their feet can move a lot. Their hand, just a lot of animation. That's the word I want. 7s are very animated in the way they tell stories, and voices, lots of different voices and accents, and really getting into a story by impersonating the people of the story. That's all big 7 energy. In terms of clothes, whatever's trendy, whatever's cool, whatever's maybe different or creative in a, not exactly, it's just like anything with like, I don't know, fun, I guess. I don't know a better word. We get to 8s. 8s are more serious. Okay, 8s do present a lot more serious. Now, 8s can have fun. I'm trying to embody my 8 energy right now though, but their energy is very grounded. It's very solid. They're often taking up more energy than they need to in a room, but you can really feel their presence. Very self-assured. Their clothing is often, it can be kind of like interesting and flashy, but it can also be tough materials like leather. I know an 8 who is a female and she tends to wear combat boots like most of the time, which is hilarious, right? 8s combat boots, 8s love conflict. Outfits that are, I don't know, kind of like battle ready. I know that sounds really weird, but that's what I think of when I think of combat boots, right? So it's like tough clothes, a solid presence. 8s are not silly. I mean, they can be funny and they can definitely tell funny jokes, but they will quickly snap back into, because they have a 7 wing, but they will snap back into their seriousness. And there's just a real calm. There's not anxiety presence at 8. And that's one of the that's the biggest way that I can tell when I'm typing somebody, especially on the phone, if I can't see them in person and they're telling me they're a 6. But you can hear the anxiety in a 6's voice, and there is no anxiety in an 8's voice. And then 9s, let's go back to 9. So 9s are our super laid back folks, right? 9s are nappers. They're often maybe kind of relaxing, maybe head down. Gentle smile, comforting words. 9s are accommodating. They're easy like Sunday morning. That's how a 9 is. Their clothes are usually flowy and comfortable. They are very sing-songy, very melodic. Is that the word? Melodic. Sometimes 9s will just, in the middle of a sentence, they'll just stop. And you're like, hello? Hey, where'd you go? What are you saying? They'll drift like that. But low energy at 9. Low energy eyes at 9. Sometimes said 9s have like dead eyes. The eye energy there is sleepy at 9. All right, this is a short video. Thank you so much for watching. I hope it was helpful.